Hi, I'm Betty. Welcome to my kitchen. The recipe I want to share with you today is for a chocolate souffle. And the reason is I was watching a cooking show recently, and these were very professional chefs, and they were assigned the task of making a souffle. And out of, I think it was 6 chefs, and these are chefs cooking in professional kitchens every day, only 1 came up with a presentable souffle. Now I've got to let you in on a secret. It's not that difficult. Yes, it requires attention to detail and careful measuring of your ingredients, but beyond that, there's no great technical skill involved. So here we go. In my saucepan here, I have 3/4 of a cup of whole milk, and I've got a 1/4 cup of sugar here. This is superfine sugar. If superfine sugar isn't available in your market, you can easily make it by just spinning it a few times in a food processor. So I'm going to add about 2/3 of this sugar into this milk. I'll give it a stir and slowly let that come to a boil. I'm just going to turn my heat up a little. Oh, I turned it off. Okay. We'll just let that come to a boil. All right, in this bowl I have 2 egg yolks, and I'm going to add the rest of the sugar and start whisking. And what I want is for this to come to a ribbon-like consistency, which you will see when we get there. I've been beating this for, about 3 or 4 minutes, and you can see it has lightened, and I've got a ribbon consistency there. And what I'm going to do now is fold in 2 tablespoons of flour. And now I'm ready to add the boiling milk. I've put a damp towel under my bowl to stabilize it while I do this. Just whisk it in a thin stream. Whisking it thoroughly to make sure you have no lumps in here. Put that back on the stove. Now that that's mixed, I'm going to pour it back into the pot. Just let it come to a boil, and you'll see how it thickens up. Stir it so that you have no lumps. This mixture is called crème pâtissier, and it's the basis for many things. You can add vanilla to it and then lighten it by folding in some whipped cream to fill éclairs. It's the base of all kinds of soufflés, of course. And what it is, actually, is a really thick custard. Might about come to a boil, and I think you can see that it's lovely and thick. I'm going to transfer it at this point to a bowl. Cover it with a piece of plastic wrap and let it cool a little. For our next step, we're going to butter and sugar 2 souffle dishes. These are approximately 4.5 inches or so across. And you want some nice softened butter, and give them a generous coating, making sure you get down into the edges. butter both of these. I love these silicone pastry brushes because when you're finished, they go right in the dishwasher. Instead of having to make sure you get all that grease out of a natural bristle brush. All right, so I have a little extra sugar here, and I'm just going to pour some into this dish and swirl it around to get it all coated. Since I'm going to be doing this other one, I'll just turn it and let it fall in there. And I hope you can see that that is all nicely coated with sugar. Now that my pastry cream has cooled off a little, I'm going to mix in 1/3 cup of sifted unsweetened cocoa and 4 ounces of finely chopped bittersweet chocolate. The best way to chop chocolate like this is using a serrated knife. I'm just going to gently mix all this in. Chocolate always smells so good. And that looks pretty good. The next step in making our soufflés is to beat our egg whites. And in this bowl, I have 5 egg whites. I'm going to beat these to a froth and then gradually add 2 tablespoons of superfine sugar. So here we go. Now that my egg whites are nice and foamy, I'm going to start gradually adding the 2 tablespoons of sugar. All right, my egg whites have got stiff peaks. They're still nice and glossy. You always want to be careful not to overbeat them to the point where they look dry. So what we're going to do now is fold part of this into our chocolate mixture to lighten it. And we don't have to be too careful about the folding process at this point. Get that thoroughly mixed. Carefully fold it in. I should also mention I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees. Just standard folding technique, over and under. Just think lovely, light, delicate thoughts as you're doing this, and it'll work out just fine. You just fold until there are no major white streaks left showing. Now you may have a little extra left over, but when you're making soufflés, you always want to make sure you have enough to fill your bowls. If you have a little extra, make an extra one. It can always be a cook's treat. So now I've got my prepared dishes. I'm just going to fill them with this lovely chocolate mixture. Just keeping it nice and light. are. And we'll just give the tops a little smoothing there. Very lightly, of course. And what you want to do is run your thumb around the edge of the souffle, just like so. And that's going to ensure it will rise nice and straight. There we are. I'm just going to wipe my hand. And we're going to get those right into the oven. We're going to go in at, as I said, 400 degrees. And I've got a tray heating in there, and they're going to go right on top. And they're going to cook for about 10 minutes. Now, in the old days, of course, the warning was you could never open the oven because your souffle would fall. But of course, today we have these wonderful ovens with glass doors and lights inside, so we can really stand and watch them rise. So here goes. All right, my souffle is done. It hasn't risen quite as much as I would have liked, but it has risen, as you can see. And we will just give it a little topping of confection or sugar. Now, if you want to be really decadent, you can top it with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, or my personal favorite, salted caramel gelato. I'll just shape that a little bit. Oh, it's going to be a little sticky, all right. We'll just put that right in the center there. It'll melt in and become a sauce. And even though it hasn't reached the heights I had hoped it would, it'll still be wonderful. I hope it's something you'll enjoy. As you can see, a souffle is probably a pretty difficult thing to pull off for a big dinner party. But you can make the creme pâtissier ahead, even a day ahead. Keep it covered with the cling film. You can do that ahead, and then you can finish the entire souffle. Just cover the dishes, and they can sit at room temperature for 30 minutes before they go in the oven. So again, it is pretty tricky to pull off for a big crowd, but if you're having a small dinner party, 4 to 6, and they're willing to wait a few minutes for dessert, you can certainly do it, I'm sure. And even though, as I said, it didn't quite rise to the heights I had hoped today, it is really delicious.